And I'd like to welcome you all to our first session of 2025 on Thursday, 1:30 p.m. And we are going to learn more about password safety and management with cyber seniors, presented by Annie. Annie, if you could introduce yourself and your topic for today, we'd really appreciate that. And again, I look forward to the session, and make sure you all stay on for the poll. Thank you so much, Annie.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody. My name is Annie, and I work for a organization called Cyber Seniors right here. I'm pointing at it. Today, we are going to present password safety and management, and I will start with a slideshow, and after we will go to the live demo. If you have any questions during the time I'm presenting, feel free to write them down if you don't know how to use the chat, and I will address them after. If you do have them and know how to use the chat, write them in the chat, and if I see them popping, I will answer to the best of my abilities. So with that said, I'm gonna turn off my camera during the time I'm presenting, just because that give me a better connection and the slideshow is not lagging off. So let me turn off my camera, and I'm gonna start by presenting my screen. And when you can see this, please let me know so I can get started. It should be there in a minute. Fantastic.
Yep, it says password safety and management.
Wonderful. Alrighty. So the reason why we are going over this is because we just came from our presentation about how to keep your email clean and how to avoid spam and things of that nature during the holiday. This goes on hand with that topic just because digital passwords are a vital function to ensure online security and safeguarding your identity and also use sensitive information. Essentially, without them, you leave yourself vulnerable to risk such as spam, scareware, and spyware, and other type of problems that you can encounter. So before I jump into the actual presentation, here's our disclaimer. And just keep in mind that presentations are intended for educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for independent professional judgment. The statements of fact and opinions expressed are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of cyber seniors unless explicitly stated. Cyber Seniors does not endorse or take responsibility for the accuracy or completeness of the information provided. Please also be aware that the sessions will be recorded, both audio and video, and may be published in various media formats, including audio and video without further notice. All right, with that out of the way, and this is probably an obvious question, but let's start with this. So what is a digital password? And commonly you would refer to them as passwords, but considering we use them normally online, they are digital, right? You have other type of passwords that are not necessarily digital, but a digital password is a combination of characters that is used to authenticate access to electronic resources. So here I have included 3 examples of that. So on the left side, you have online accounts. That can be banking and finance, such as perhaps you bank. I put here Bank of America, but if you use other bank, take it for that. PayPal and similar services are considered, banking and finances. You also could have an online account for online shopping. So if you have used Amazon, eBay, or other platforms of this nature, email providers such as Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, AOL, among others. And if you are using streaming platforms, you likely have an online account, which is Netflix, Spotify, and similar. In the middle, we have passwords that we use for electronic devices. I believe most of you have a iOS device, therefore you likely have an Apple ID. So this account is essential for accessing Apple services such as iCloud, the App Store, and Apple Music. Also, if you use a Gmail email, likely you will have a Google account, and this account is necessary for Android devices. So if you use a Samsung, if you use a Motorola, if you use any other device as opposed to Apple, likely you have an Android system, and Google has become like a necessary account for this type of devices because this account gives access to Google Play Store, Google Drive, and additional services. How is this all related? Because all of these type of accounts need a sort of password to be accessed, right? And in the right hand, we have computer systems. When is a password used in a computer system? When you are looking for accounts and credentials to access Wi-Fi, for example. So you have something called SSID, also translated to Service Set Identifier. This is the name of the Wi-Fi networks you see when searching for available ones. So the SSID is the identifier of a computer system or internet system. Can be a business, but also can be a house. Wi-Fi password, this is the password you enter to connect to a Wi-Fi network. So these computer systems usually, like many other options, have a user or name and a password associated with them. Now, after seeing the different ways to use a digital password, and this is a question that if you feel like answering, you can type in the chat. Should you have the same one for every account? So after you see the different type of accounts and services you can or need a password in, should you use the same password for every account?
Please share your response in the chat. Okay, we got a no, got a no, ma'am.
Yeah, no, ma'am. Yeah, good. All right. So the answer is, of course, not. You should not, because it's not a good practice, right? All right. So with that in mind, now we are going to see the digital passwords types. And we have, quite a few that we often overlooked or don't even know what they are. But here I have input details of them because this is kind of the build up for what is coming in this presentation. Now, on the left, we have alphanumeric passwords. This is quite commonly known by people, and it combines letters, right? It can be upper and lowercase as well as numbers. And here we have an example: A1, B2, C3, D4. Do you think that password is safe, or is it too obvious? If you want to answer, you can use the chat. Okay. All right. I will check the chat as I go. The second option on the left is password with the special characters. So this could include letters, numbers, and special characters such as the exclamation mark, the @ symbol, the number symbol, and the dollar symbol. An example that includes special characters could be password. Still, do you think this one is safe? Somebody said too obvious for a professional cyber thief. Not safe. Maybe not, because it's easy guessable, right? So it's just a replacement of a regular letter. So it's kind of easy to guess.
I think for both of those, the Miss Gracie and Mr. Lee, I think they were talking about the first one. The second one's definitely better than
Yeah.
But the first one, it could be worse.
Yeah, I think so too. But the second is not any better. I think they are both are as bad. But yeah, okay, it's debatable. Okay, so phrase-based passwords. So these are used for things such as, Google sometimes has something called passphrase. So apart from your password, it will ask for a passphrase. And that's what you see is a combination of a complete phrase that is easy to remember but difficult to guess because it's long. So for instance, here I have the one black cat jump to the sun. So I have one number, a couple of capital letters. I also have lower letters, and the complexity is not as notorious, but because it's long, I would say it's a little bit difficult to guess. And that is the purpose of that passphrase-based password. On the right side, we have biometric password. So this uses unique physical characteristics of a person, whether that is your fingerprint, facial recognition, iris scanning, right? An example is when you use facial recognition on smartphones and any other device. Sometimes it will use your fingerprint and any other similar biological aspects of you, which make the password, complex in itself. You have image password, and this uses a sequence of gestures or clicks on an image. An example of this would be the CAPTCHA. Sometimes you have to confirm what images are you seeing on the screen to be able to move to the next step in a website or perhaps in an application you are using. That is an image type password. The last one here is the one-time password. They are useful one time. That's it. They are generated and sent for a single session or transaction. And after that session or transaction, they won't longer be useful. Therefore, you don't need to save them. An example of this can be the codes that are sent via a text message for authentication, such as the ones your bank will ask you sometimes. All right. Next part of this, and this is more so if they want to mute Alex and tell me if they can identify after seeing the classification of the previous slideshow, if they can identify which password is which, if that
Sure.
makes.
Yeah. You all can unmute if you'd like and participate and go over or share what type you think it is based on what we just learned.
Yeah. So
This
identify
looks
the type.
like
Yeah.
they want to see, can you identify all the bridges in the, yes. So you'd have to identify all the bridges.
Yeah. And what type of password is that?
From looking at the, that would be a fingerprint.
These are three different things, right? So this is one image.
Oh, okay.
Another
Yeah.
image. And this is
I think we were doing one at a time. So
yeah, one at a
Okay,
time.
that would be a picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, picture this one. Okay, what about the one on the left?
That's a biometric.
That's a biometric. Very good. What about the one on the right?
That's the third one.
Verification code.
Verification code. You see, it has the initials.
Yeah,
It's
we saw that.
one-time
Oh
password.
yeah, one-time
Yeah.
password.
Also
I do get
known
that.
as OTP. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for participating. I really appreciate that. It's nice that you guys have it clear. So it means it makes sense what I went over. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All righty. All right. Let's go to the next part. So these are the characteristics of a good digital password. The first one, and very important, is long and complex. Ideally, it doesn't mean it's the standard, but ideally, it should be 12 characters and include a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Now, it gets complex and it gets difficult to find out what you are going to put in the password, but we will find or look at some methods that you can use to get this done. Second, it should be unique. Each account or device, which already we mentioned, should have a different password to minimize the risk in case one is compromised. Now, why is so important to have different passwords for different accounts? If anybody can type that in the chat, that would be great. So why is so important to have different passwords for each account? And what is the risk if you don't do that? Anybody in the chat? Okay. The reason why you should have a different password for each account is because if you have the same password for every account that you use, it takes the cyber criminal no time to find that out. And once they have access to one account, they can figure a lot after. And here are some answers. So having different passwords offers more security. So if your password is compromised, they can access all your account. Very good. Lastly, it should be unpredictable. So avoid using personal information such as your names or your pet names, birth dates, or very common words, right? And that is a way to stay safe. Here at the very bottom, we have two examples of good passwords. Essentially, this is a scramble that you want to have in a password. Most of us will have a very hard time creating something like that. And that is why you will use things such as password generators. And we will jump into that in just a minute. Before I go into password generators, I want to add to what we just went over. So you have the characteristics of a good password, right? But what about if you not only have a good password, but you add something is called the two-factor authentication that will give you an extra layer of security. Multi-factor authentication, also known as 2FA or MFA, enhances security by requiring a second form of verification to confirm your identity. So say you were hacked because your password was easy to guess, but the two-factor authentication would prevent the hacker to actually enter because you have set this up in case your password is not secure enough. But your goal in mind should be, I should make my password secure, but this is just an extra layer of security, as I mentioned. This may involve entering a code sent through an application. So if you use, for example, Outlook, you can use Authenticator, and it will allow you to verify with the Authenticator application that you are entering that account. And if somebody's entering that account without your consent, you can say, no, this is no me, right? This also incorporates other identifiers such as fingerprints or facial recognition. So that goes to say you can have the regular password, the one that include capital letters, lower letters, numbers, special characters, and also set up a fingerprint or a biometric password. If that is something that makes you feel comfortable and you want to add an extra layer of security, this also can be done. And this will make a significantly more challenging situation for cyber criminals to access your account. So here is an example of a sign in a Google account. And I know some of you, including myself, have mixed feelings about Google, but because it's so widely used, normally I bring examples with Google. So when I enter my email, I had to put my email and my password. But my computer says, wait a minute, you can also use pass keys, which is similar to the passphrase type of password that we went over. And that will allow you to add an extra layer of security. If you ever see this prompt in front of you, you can set it up by clicking in continue. And as it says here, with passkeys, you can set up fingerprint, Face ID, or screen lock to verify it's really you, just in case your password has been compromised. This is another example, and it goes close to the OTP password type, in which you already use your password, but the account is asking you to confirm that it's really you and that you are the account holder. So what the system is doing is sending you a verification code to the email they have in file so you can verify on top of the password you use. And that is an OTP kind of password, in which case you will have to enter 6-digit verification code here. And when you type that in, you will enter code. So you see how everything is kind of interconnected. You just have to be good at knowing what each thing is and knowing when to use it. Now, when it comes to creating passwords, such as these ones right here, this one right here, and I went back so you could see. So this is not something a person will, put together out of nowhere, because it's long, it's a scramble, and sometimes we have a difficult time trying to put something like that together. Gladly, we can use free tools such as a password generator, right? And this is to create unique and strong passwords. This enhance security because it's important to make passwords as random and unpredictable as possible. Those are the components of safe passwords. And this would reduce vulnerability to hackers and data breaches, right? Adding that few extra characters can significantly increase the time it will take for someone to crack the password you use. One effective method for generating strong passwords and random passwords is to use a trusted password generator. And you have options here. You don't need to pay for this. You can go online and you can look for any of these services and you can generate a password. So you have Dashlane, ExpressVPN, LastPass, NordPass. And I'm going to show you how some of these password generators look like. And here we have number one. So this is Dashlane, and what it shows is an example of a strong password. See how here at the very bottom of the password, it will say strong password, meaning it's scrambled enough. At the bottom, you can also decide the length of a password. So here is 16 characters, and at the very bottom, you have check boxes to decide what type of characters you are including in your password. This is just a screenshot. You have an idea how it looked like. I will show you in the live demo a little bit more about that. That will be the first thing that I show you. And here is another example. It looks slightly different, but the essence of it is the same, right? Alex just mentioned something too, and I will show you as well. I just giving different options. So you guys have that. We will take a look at the keychain. So you have another backup to create strong passwords. So here is the random password generator from ExpressVPN. And you can use, as in the previous example, the check boxes to decide what kind of characters you're including, right? And it will tell you how long it will take a hacker to guess that password. And if the password is not strong enough and you write it here, it will also tell you it's weak, or it will take such and such amount to be guessed by a hacker or a bad actor. You can also decide the password length. Here is 17 characters by moving this circle to the right or to the left. And this button will generate different passwords as you keep clicking on it, okay? All right, so password manager. And we heard password generator. These are password generators, right? They are not necessarily password managers. Password generators is a valuable tool for improving security and simplifying password management. Why? As we create new accounts and new passwords, it becomes more and more complex to remember them. So you use a password manager to save them securely and autofill when you enter to different places you use online. The disclaimer I will do about password managers: if you are using a free version, such as the browser version that I will mention in a bit, you should not save anything related to your identity, finances, or taxes. Because in a browser, you have the prompt to be, affected by a data breach. And that is something that you don't want to be involved. And if you input information related to your identity, finances, or tax information, that is not going to look good for you. So I will not use a password manager for that. The bottom line of this is that try to memorize just the passwords that are important, such as your bank, such as if you have or use a financial application, try to memorize that password so you don't compromise it, right? By saving in a password manager, such as the browser one. All right. So many password managers monitor your account and even notify you of potential security breaches or weak passwords. So if you have input your information on a website and that website is compromised, the password manager will tell you, you should do something about this because this is not safe for you. Same with the weak password. So if the password is not strong enough, the password manager will also tell you that you need to change your password. So here's a question. And if you feel like answering or you have encountered this before, feel free to type in the chat. You can also raise your hand to approve that you have seen this before. The example on the left is from a Google system, right? So Google, when you have input an account, username and password, it will tell you, do you want to save this password? And it will put the username and the password in front of you, and it will give you the option never and save. As I say, this is not all bad, all right? It's bad if you use this to save accounts that can compromise your identity because you don't want to be a victim of identity theft. But if you use an account that doesn't represent as much as a threat for you, I think it's okay to use Password Manager from a browser. In the other side, we have the Cloud Kitchen. Now, what is that? If you use an iOS device, you have a password manager embedded in your device, and you don't have to pay for. You don't have to pay for because it's already there for you to use, okay? And seems like we have a couple people that have seen this before. Thank you so much for confirming that. So I'm glad that we are familiar with this prompt. And what I mentioned before about password manager when it comes to internet browser password managers. So most web browsers come with a basic, right? Keep in mind that password manager. It doesn't offer as much security, but it's there to aid you for simple stuff. These features store your passwords when you are prompted by Chrome or Safari to save them, and you can choose to do so if you feel safe and comfortable. You can set the browser to ask you each time you create a new account if you want to save your password. Or you can configure to remember your information. So when you go to the same website again, it will log in for you automatically. This is something you should never do for your credit card information. Don't get the website to save your credit card information. Please, please, please. Say never when it comes to saving your credit card information. All right. With that said, here is a live demo, and let me show you first the password generator for, okay. So can we all see this? I hope that you guys
Yeah,
can.
you're good, Annie.
Wonderful. So here I have a password. Actually, this is the wrong order. Okay. Here is the password generator from Dashlane, right? So if you go to dashlane.com and write down password generator, you likely will land here. You can also simply type in the search bar of your browser, password generator Dashlane, and it will take you here. It likely will be the first result from your list. What is a random password generator, right? A strong password generator is a tool that automatically generates random and complex passwords based on guidelines that you use to set, create a strong and unpredictable passwords. Now at the very top, and I went here so you know what the password generator is. I think I went over that, but just in case. And here is how these systems look like. So this is a strong password, but if I were to have a short password, you see how it changes. It says weak password, right? And you can add length by moving the circle. You can select letters or deselect letters, right? This is still a strong password based on what the system is saying. But if I went back, it would say fairly strong, which is not strong enough. You can remove digits. And you do this by just clicking on the boxes. So you can decide what do you add to that password. So it is comprised by something that is random and unique. And I hope that you can notice here, you have a copy function. So if you are using your system and you are in this website, you can copy that and after paste it somewhere else. So say that I pasted, so here I will be able to paste that password. So you can copy between systems if you are trying to generate a password to use after. So that's a nice thing. And it's, if you pay attention, it's not that complex. You can write it down in a piece of paper as well, right? Just remember, if you use still a notebook to save your passwords, though it's not my method of preference to save passwords, write down the day you are creating your password, the username this password goes to, and the password below the username, because most people sometimes will write down the password, but they won't remember to what system the password belongs to. So this is how you generate a password with a random password generator. Now, we talk about Google Password Managers. I don't have any safe passwords here for the purpose of showing you something. So how do you access a password generator from Google? So if you go at the top right corner, you have the menu of Google, and from there you have something is called passwords and autofill, right? In passwords and autofill, you have something is called Google Password Manager, and then you will be taken right here where I am right now. And from here, if you were to add a password, you can do that by tapping in here. So for example, you can add the website that you want to save the password for. So say it's google.com, the username. So because it's a Google account, likely is a Gmail email, right? And after you will put your password, keep in mind that if you don't know what you are typing here, you can always use the I here and it will show you what is written. And if you want to be even more specific, you can make a note. So for example, this is my demo account for Google, right? So I will just hit save and my password has been saved. As you start putting information here, you will see password listed here. You can also go to checkup, and based on the passwords that you have saved already in the system, I only have one, it will tell you right after checking up everything if you have any compromised passwords, if your passwords are unique, if your passwords look strong, and things of that nature, right? And in settings, you can also decide how your password managers behave. So this is something we mentioned in the presentation. Is your password manager offering to save passwords and passkeys? You can deactivate or activate if you want the browser to keep asking you to save passwords. If you don't want the browser to do that, you can deactivate. When it comes to sign in automatically, so this goes to when you already have a password in the system. So the password manager will remember how you signed in last time you were in the place, and it will sign you automatically. This is not something that you are going to use for your bank or your tax account or your, anything that identifies you completely online. You don't want to use this for that. You want to use this for simple accounts that don't have as much details of you embedded on. So what examples of this would be if you are using perhaps a streaming application? That's something I don't think it would be as bad, though one will question or say otherwise, but that is something I will feel okay putting here. Something like that. And you have much more details here. So for example, because I'm using a Windows computer right now, I can connect my Windows computer. So apart from asking me for a password, it will use a second identification to enter an account, and that is safety right there. Okay, it's fine. Your password is okay. But I want to confirm that is you. So we'll use something is called Windows Hello when filling out password, which is the password that you have for your computer or your device, and it will enter. Okay, so that is the computer, Google Password Manager, and generator --. I'm gonna use now my iPad, and I'm gonna show you my screen in the iPad, hoping that you can see this. Actually, 1 second. Let me do it a different way because I want to be able to control the iPad more. Okay. Let me know when you can see this. Will be in the screen in just a minute. Okay. We can all see this.
Yep. You're in your Zoom now and your home screen, so you're good.
Fantastic. Okay. So we were talking also about the keychain, and the keychain is related to password management or password manager and also password generator. Now, what is that? So if you go to your settings, which is this gear icon right here, right? You tap on that, then you go to your settings and you can go to a menu that is called passwords, right? And it will have like a little key on the left side, a little key icon. So when you go to passwords, if I were to tap on that, then I have a similar system to the system I went over in Google, just is safer for my iOS device. What options do I have here? I have a plus sign at the top right corner. And if I went there, I can save a new password. So if I do that, automatically, when I do that, my system will create a password. No, don't trust my word for it, because right now, because I'm using share screen, it's not showing the password right here, but it will display a password in this part for you. And similar to what we did in Google, you can add the website and the username. Now, if you don't have a website or username, you can simply tap the username and save by tapping in done. Just keep in mind when you are ready, the done will be blue. If you have missed any information, it will be gray. But it's a similar system to what we just went over in Google, just for your iPad or your iOS, or your iPhone. Both devices have the possibility to do this. When you have safe passwords, you also can go to security recommendations. And here there is a toggle option that is called detect compromised password. So if you already have been saving passwords on your iPad and the iPad sees that a password is compromised, it will send you an alert and it will appear right here. But if you deactivate that when you have safe passwords, and even though if they are not safe, it won't tell you anything. So you need to activate this. And the other option is password options. It was similar to settings in the Google password manager. And because I don't have any passwords, it won't do much for me right now. But here, it will offer different options as to how I want to handle my passwords and passkeys in the iPad. Because the iCloud keychain is the password manager of default of my iOS device, that is why this is in green. But you see, you have other options here. So for example, you can also use Chrome as your password manager, right? DuckDuckGo, which is another browser, has your password manager, or ExpressVPN. If you have like a premium account, you can use ExpressVPN as opposed to the iCloud keychain. I will say these two, ExpressVPN, if you pay a subscription, and these are good. This one is free. This one you will have to pay for a subscription to manage your passwords. Keep that in mind. And also I have another system here that can control or manage my password that is associated with my antivirus. That goes to say, if you already have an antivirus software, likely some of them will offer a password manager. So you might want to check if the password management system is offered through the antivirus package, and maybe you can use that additional security on there, right? And here is about the verification codes that you receive in your device. So after a code has been used in your device, you can select the device to delete it automatically. So you don't have to have any, like a stack up of codes that you don't need. So the system will be smart enough to know that after you use a verification code in messages or the mail application, as it says here at the very bottom, it won't save it because it's no longer useful. It's one-time password, right? So you don't need it after you have used it. So you can select this one as well. And something that Alex mentioned when we were talking about this presentation, and I know I'm a little bit, I have a little bit of time, but I will mention because he requests this, is about the biometrics and the passcode for your iPad. So if you go to Touch ID and passcode, from here, you can set up your Touch ID, which is the screening of your finger, to do different things. What cases will this be useful? Or in what cases will this be useful? So for example, if some of you have felt safe enough to put in place Wallet and Apple Pay, I will use Touch ID for that. Why? Because if you are doing a transaction, you want to confirm that transaction, and you don't want another person to go and complete that transaction magically. So if you use your Touch ID and passcode, it will allow you to ask you every time something related to your wallet and Apple Pay is involved to request your biometrics, your fingerprint, right? Same with password autofill. So remember, password autofill is when the password management submit any information is safe in the system automatically. Some people won't feel comfortable with that. Some others feel comfortable with that. And you can add extra security by using your fingerprint and approving, yes, I want to use these credentials, and here is my print ID. Now, to be able to use this, of course, you need to add a fingerprint. So if you were about that, you essentially will have to use the fingerprint of your choice. Say, for example, is the thumb, and you will have to kind of soften in the home button, right? And you see how it start reading. And if you are doing something wrong, it will tell you. So keep finger on the home button until asked to lift. So I'm gonna keep it, and I'm not pressing, right? Lift your fingers, place your finger, right? Lift your finger, place your finger, and until this is done, right? And it's a little bit annoying. I personally don't enjoy this part, but yeah. So move your fingers slightly between the scans. Okay, I will
Yeah,
move it.
it's a one-time thing, so you know,
Yeah.
it's needed, but
All
it's
right.
good.
There you are. So after my fingerprint has been read or my biometric has been set up, it will continue, or I can continue. and I will add the rest of my finger identification. And once you're done, it will show you that prompt on the screen. So that is essentially adding a fingerprint. If you want to turn passcode on, that is a different story, because the passcode option can be a series of numbers, or if you go to passcode options, you can decide which one do you want to use. And we mentioned types of digital passwords at the very beginning. So here you can select a 4-digit number code, a 6-digit number code, a custom numeric code, or a custom alphanumeric code. You can select the type of passcode that you use whenever you are using the iPad. Okay, and you can do this by going to turn on passcode. I have it disabled right now. That's what it says, turn on passcode. And if you have not added a fingerprint, the steps go to what I just mentioned. Okay. All right, because I need to have time left for questions, I will leave it here. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and as usual, thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Annie, for presenting for our session today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And it's so important to talk about this so we can keep our data safe and ourselves safe, when using the internet. So we really appreciate that. If you all have any questions or any comments for Annie, please raise your hand in Zoom. Make sure you stay on for a poll at the end after we say our goodbyes. So again, any questions or comments for Annie, please raise your hand in Zoom.